equally great in this endeavor. With this background to Design United, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome and to introduce our presenting designers for today, architects Nirpal Adhikari from Abari, Nepal, and architects Kailash Pradhan and Upendra Gurung from Sikkim, India. Their presentation will be followed by a discussion moderated by two students of architecture. Nirpal Adhikari has a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the City College of New York. He founded Abari, based in Kathmandu in 2007, as a socially and environmentally committed research, design, and construction firm that examines and celebrates vernacular architectural tradition of Nepal. Abari reappropriates traditional materials like bamboo and earth in the contemporary architectural context. When the devastating earthquake of 2015 struck Nepal, all of Abari's structures survived, including two buildings that were built at the epicenter. Abari has worked extensively to create post-earthquake open source documents and believe that in the massive task of rebuilding post-earthquake lies an opportunity to move development towards a more sustainable model. Welcome, Architect Nirpal. We would also like to welcome architects Kailash Pradhan and Upendra Gurung, co-founders of Studio Interweave, located in Sikkim, India. Architect Upendra Gurung studied at the Priyadarshini Institute of Architecture and Design, followed by a master's from the Wells School of Architecture, Cardiff University. Renowned architect Kailash Pradhan has years of experience in problem solving through architecture in the Himalayan region. They co-founded Interweave in 2015 as a practice that aspires to understand and recognize interconnections that are socio-cultural, economic, environmental, and to incorporate this into practice. We're truly delighted to have these two practices share their approaches and these designers share their design journeys with us today. Welcome to Design Conversation, Architect Nirpal, Architects Kailash Pradhan, and Architect Upendra. We will start the presentation today with Abari. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. Very nice to be here. I wish I could see all your beautiful faces. But yeah, that's the reality of online presentation. So let me tell you about myself as I talk about my works. Do you see my slide?
Yes.
All right, great. So yeah, I'll talk about our works in Nepal, and the title is Crafting with Bamboo and Earth. I call it crafting because I think it's not, because it has the element of hand built. It's an art rather than a building construction. So we're trying to design a system, and that's what I'd like to talk about. My inspiration comes from vernacular buildings from all over the world, especially New Mexico's Pueblo architecture, the beautiful earth architecture that survived hundreds of years and still continues to do so. Yeah, or like beautiful woven architecture from Africa, just using plant fibers, or 9-story earth skyscraper from Yemen. Like this is built in a very hot and humid climate, and yet it doesn't need any external cooling. It looks beautiful. It's got its beautiful character, identity. It's so very comfortable to be in. And moreover, it's earthquake resistant. And so, with all this inspiration, I was always interested to look at how vernacular could be put into modern context. We're not interested in, we're not conservation architects, we're not trying to build as it was built 2000 years ago, but trying to use that sensibility and see how it can fit into modern context. If you are aware of Nepal's geography, it's got the plains and it's got the mountains, it's got the Himalayas. So we have amazing diversity of architecture, from uh, flat earthen roofed architecture to beautiful woven bamboo architecture in the plains where it rains a lot, and in the desert where it doesn't rain, you have beautiful earthen architecture. So this is our starting point. Or like, we've been documenting a lot of these beautiful, like this building that you see is uh, it was from the epicenter of the earthquake. While many modern buildings have collapsed, like many of these traditional buildings survived. They look beautiful. Look at the windows, beautiful carving, beautiful uh, tiles, beautiful woodwork. Everything's locally sourced. You go to the forest nearby, you have beautiful trees. You cut them and make your windows. You make your doors. You make your beams. You make your rafters. And then the earth is right under your feet. Just use it and to make this structure. And also, uh, traditionally, I mean, still a living practice in the villages. People would come together to help you, right? There's a system called Parma, where neighbors come, and if I'm building my house, they would come to help me. And where they're building their house, I go and help them. So it's basically everything. You have a beautiful house, virtually uh, free, right? Or this a house in Mustang, which is all built with dry stack stone, and then has beautiful wooden bands to make it earthquake resistant. Um, or like this house from Tarai, from the plains, where it rains a lot, and they use vegetable dyes to make paintings, pigments. And it rains a lot there. So every monsoon it rains, and parts of the painting gets washed off. But they didn't see that as a problem. They see it as an opportunity, as a ritual. So next year they paint it again in a different color. So this is the same house I was documenting for 4 years. So to 2008, it's a beautiful painting. It got washed off, and in this festival of Chhat, which is in October, they paint it again. So it's a beautiful living tradition. It's a beautiful ritual. Or you look at this beautiful bridge from 1895, 30-meter bridge made of bamboo, woven bamboo and cane. This is a pretty amazing suspension bridge technology from hundreds of years old. Uh, or this one, it's actually from Sikkim, like all in the mountains. We have this amazing tradition, but look, we have demonized our traditional system, and we want to copy the Western system, which is supposed to be durable and stronger and engineered. And we cannot do that because of our economic context. And so what we do is you use a steel cable. Like this is a pretty recurring scenario in all our mountains. They take a steel cable, and kids have to uh, pulley their way across the river, right? So it's because we have demonized our tradition. We have like all the education system things. Building method is primitive, or in our words, kotcha. And while we try to ape the industrial Western materials, we don't have the financial capability of doing it. And then we have this very substandard, unhumane infrastructure. Just to give you a small background, like the whole of Nepal's got only 17.6% of cement penetration, and that's mostly in the cities. But in many of the villages, in regions, they're as low as 0.2% of cement penetration. That means 99% of the buildings are built with local and natural material. And our policies are against these kind of buildings. Our academia is things that these buildings are too primitive, too kacha, or even our media shows the building as very, it's like, our tradition is shown as a sign of embarrassment or sign of poverty, right? So, like I'd show this picture from Kathmandu from 1930, beautiful earthen buildings, and like see how it has gradually evolved and become a concrete jungle, right? This is all in the name of modernization and development, right? A look at Kathmandu now, which has got the highest concentration of World Heritage sites, is now turned into a concrete building, concrete jungle. And it's got no identity. You look at any of our South Asian cities, they all look the same. They've got no character, uh, like whether it's a picture of Delhi or Dhaka or Kathmandu, it doesn't make any difference. So, but why, despite, you know, why are we still using steel and concrete? Because there is this unfounded claim, which is kind of lie, that steel and concrete is very strong and it can survive all the earthquakes, right? It can if it's properly designed. Same with earthen buildings. If it's properly designed, it can survive the earthquake. This is a picture from Sindhu Palchuk district, which was the epicenter of the earthquake. In this region, many of the concrete buildings, as high as 3-4 stories, they came down. Right? It was it was a it was a moment of reckoning, like when people said, oh, people put years of hard-earned money to build their houses, and then there was a tremor, everything came down. If it was a earthen building, they could have rebuilt it, everything could have been salvaged. But in the concrete building, there's nothing you can salvage. And this is a picture from the same site, from the epicenter, built with earthen building, which survived. So it's not about the material, but it's how you design, right? It's not like the poor earthen buildings, all of them collapse, uh, while the steel doesn't. It's how you build it, right? That's the message we wanted to give. And so in this context, we built this organization, Abari, which is a private organization that tries to take traditional material like bamboo and earth and try to put it in a modern context, right? So for this, we use bamboo and earth. Why bamboo? Because in Nepal, we have about 54 species of bamboo. And it's very much part of our uh, cultural landscape, like from birth to death, we use bamboo. It's earthquake resistant. It was estimated 10% of our population survive on bamboo. And it's a very strong material. If you zoom into the anatomy of bamboo, it's got these tubes which make it very strong and ductile. If there's an earthquake, it sways and comes back to shape. People compare bamboo to steel, right? But I think that's a bad comparison, because steel is strong, but it's heavy. Bamboo is strong and it's lightweight. You'd rather compare it to high-tech materials like carbon fiber, right? So despite this, why aren't people using bamboo? Because there are certain traditional issues. One was the joinery. It's like bamboo is not a homogeneous material. It's it's hard to join 2 or 3 more pieces. So we looked at different ways of connecting them. We use steel, we use epoxy, we use rattan. We are experimenting. But the small connection, we've did a lot of research and design and found it to be very strong was this steel bracket where we tied in with a barrel nut system, which creates a very strong tensile member. Using this technology, we could go higher and bigger, you know. So there was a major breakthrough. And the second was treatment, like in bamboo is very strong, but it's not very durable in its natural context. So what we did is we developed a very simple pressure chamber using, like hacking our gas cylinder. We, added some inlet and outlet to put preservative in, and then connected it to the ends of bamboo, which would push out the starch. Boom, like a very simple technology can have a very lasting impact. And, like from bamboo that lasts 3 years, now it lasts 40, 50 years or more. Uh, or there are other technologies to like pressure treatment to do this. Um, so with these small innovations, but small but very meaningful, we try to build structures. And my interest was to build public spaces, because as you saw in previous slides, we have a lot of beautiful earthen buildings, earthen houses, but public spaces like school, hospitals, these are relatively modern intervention. So, and these are only made with steel and concrete. So I thought, like, if we can intervene and make public structures, that would be great. So this was the first structure we did with bamboo, 10 meters, made a beautiful vaulted arch. Uh, and then the second was in schools, same as in India or many South Asian countries. Our schools, government schools, are very uninspiring, very boring, like they're made with bricks and steel truss and galvanized sheet. Very, if it gets hot, it gets super hot. If it's cold, it's super cold. If it's raining, it's so loud that you cannot be inside. So what we did was a small hypothesis. What if we used local materials, slates, stones, bamboo, whatever is locally available, and make a school, what you call Anganwadi, an early childhood village. And we use bamboo struts, and like we had nice ventilation inside. Like we salvaged like drain pipes to make windows, or recycled beer bottles to bring in lights. Nice big wooden windows from locally harvested wood, and beautiful earthen plaster. Very light and spacious, and yet at the same cost. And moreover, the cost was going directly to the community instead of some industrialist, right? So what happened is, when we did this, uh, by coincidence, this happened to lie right at the epicenter of the earthquake, right? And this was the only building that's survived in the whole region. It was a big vindication for us, for our technology, and to gain public trust, that it can be strong. So, it was a great moment. So, and the government was very receptive to these ideas. So we designed an open source, because, there was a big earthquake, and like, I think 40,000 schools needed to be built, and we didn't have the capacity, or we didn't even want to build so many schools. So we gave out free information to public. So we took a traditional design, opened it up, put some nice ventilation, put some insulation, nice earthen plaster, like a design that can be replicated across the country. A very modular design that can fit in different places. So we took a traditional government school design, because we didn't want to be very ambitious. Because if you have ambitious design, there'll be a lot of resistance. So we just pulled it out and put some play space. Uh, and we build many schools like this. This one you see, the bricks you see is compressed earth blocks, and then we fuse bands, and then nice ventilation, and you look at the ceiling, bamboo ceiling with steel brackets. Like when you go inside, it's so nice and cool. A lot of people say like it feels like you're inside a basket. You know it's got very meditative property, very, and also even the bench that you see, it's made with bamboo, and then it's got formica, so you can write on it. It's liftable, it's modular. You can bring it together. It's just, so the idea was to show that you can build your community infrastructure using local technology, local resources, and can be meaningful, can be inspiring. And the bricks were so easy to make. We made this compressed earth block machine, and even the women were making these bricks. And we built about 25 schools with this. Some ourselves, some people copied, like downloaded the design and built it themselves. It was a great moment for us. Uh, and just to give you a small breakdown, like when we built it, 89% of the materials were local materials, right? So that means the cost remained locally, right? Only 11% were for materials like steel and concrete for reinforcement were brought from outside. And then we also built um, like public housing, like we designed this rammed earth house, like a 2-story. We wanted to be like, what we need to do is bring out poetry in all these materials. And my philosophy is, if it's poetic, if it's beautiful, people will copy. It's not like poor people need housing and you just build like massive housing that doesn't have any aesthetics, right? I think that's personally not meaningful to me. And so we build this so we are building these, we've put a lot of these open source documents, and this is sukumbasi housing. That means like for homeless people, like a very small model which they can replicate. This is interior of it, like in 2 lakh rupees you can build the whole house. Or like these model houses using lime. And so, yeah, we're putting all this information out so people can copy, do it. What I've realized in all this journey is that it's the perception, not the technical part of bamboo and earth, that is a hurdle to build. Uh, right. So after the earthquake, we were, like very privileged to build one of the oldest national archive with bamboo, with our material. It's a public archive right in the center of bamboo. I mean, right in the center of Kathmandu, built with bamboo and earth and mud. Like, wow, like 5 years ago, we would not have even thought of it. So, like with small intervention, like there's a big public leap of faith, right? So they are, these are like, we've used traditional vernacular style. We've put earthen plaster, beautiful rammed earth, uh, clay tiles on top. Like we use modern elements for joints, have plumbing, electricity inside. And this was another big moment for us when we built public library in this heart of the city. And then people getting more ambitious, more trusting. So there's another school that we finished relatively recently, about a year ago, like with beautiful rammed earth wall. And also in our rammed earth, we don't use cement. Um, so, and also beautiful texture. If you can see the red fades into yellow earth, and we put like some birds, making it very playful, like a lot of open playful spaces, with bamboo, so you can climb on it. Even the trusses, it's so playful that that works as a part of your teaching aid. like we've integrated trees, uh, bamboo walls, like even the design of the landscape is such that it becomes a forest, a food forest. There we don't have many flowers. We have like lettuces and greens, so with the kids can cut and give it and use it for cooking. Um, so here's the interior space, our public space, like, so we use, we are not fanatics that we are like, okay, like wherever it's important, because we are building public spaces, safety is number one, right? So we can compromise with safety, but also, we don't want to compromise with our principles, with our aesthetic. Um, Uh, Here's some details like with bamboo stairs, like beautiful woven bamboo, so light. It's so like, what my favorite moment is when the kids are touching the walls and touching this, and it feels like they don't feel scared of the building, they feel like they're like so close to each other. And we have high ceilings, so it gives open space. Um, so yeah, different structures. Yeah, just so we're just trying to promote bamboo and earth and in different utilities. Here's a house, um, kitchen, like a modern kitchen with plumbing, and we have even earthen stove. We have, we integrated biogas. Even the cooking, we've like kind of specialized on waterproofing the earth. So even like you can make countertops with earth. Nice attic, meditative space. Some small technologies to transport the materials, like this. It really makes a difference, to propagate and make it a mainstream material. Like, as I said, like more examples of public spaces. Like, so I'll switch topic. I see. I don't have much time, so I'll kind of I'm trying to be quick here. So. The second thing is, what's really important to us is where is the material coming from? Green doesn't mean like a green label. It's not, for me, it's green doesn't mean shopping. Like, it's not like you go to a mart and say, oh, it has a green sticker, so you buy it, right? So it's like you create a whole supply chain. So here's this river bed in Chitwan that we did an experiment with. This used to be a big forest, but because of government policies, they were at one point promoting cutting down trees to make land for agriculture. So this is a photo from 2010, and 2011 there was huge flood, and if you see, like, all the whites are sand deposits. So we are thinking, like, why don't we plant bamboo? It was a kind of experiment, social experiment, saying like, if we plant bamboo, let's see, will it regenerate the land? Like, how long would it take? So then we started planting bamboo. Like, this is in 5 years. Like in 5 years, it's like I said, bamboo is grass. It grows super fast. And this is in 8 years, it's become a beautiful forest. Right? This is actually a photo from 2 years ago. Now it's even more, like, it's a beautiful forest. There's a lot of birds coming in, a lot of ecosystems built, like, it's amazing, like, how nature can regenerate so fast, and bamboo is a great tool to do that. And what we do is, like, we've trained this river, and we use the bamboo for our construction, right? It's a beautiful closed loop, and nothing comes to waste, right? uh, River is trained, like, unlike our modern industry, which is very extractive. If you want to build, you extract, But here, you don't have to do that. You can regenerate land and you can also build a house. I think it's a win-win situation. It's a beautiful example. Here's a different view. Like all this forest is less than 5 years old, right? And you look on the other side, a beautiful rice farm. So bamboo is not taking the prime land, prime agriculture land. It grows right in the river bank. Uh, and it's become like such a beautiful, as I said, ecosystem. We're building this eco house. We're promoting tourism. We're doing workshops. We have a rural craft center where people are also making bags and furniture and bicycle. This is my favorite project. We have this electric bamboo bicycle, or even like an electric bamboo uh, dirt bike. Like it's pretty cool. It got 1,000-watt motor, and it's like it goes pretty fast and pretty comfy. And it's so, yeah, with this I like to kind of close my presentation. And like our impacts, it's not our impact, but it's an impact vis-a-vis bamboo, right? It's like when you do this, money stays in the economy, the forest is preserved. You create a very small, intimate supply chain. Where your bamboo is coming from. You call your farmer, say, I need bamboo, can you send it? It's so personal, right? And you can solve many of the modern problems. You can build schools, you can build monastery, you can build houses. And moreover, what happens when you do this, you're creating a new identity, you're creating new character. I think it's our it's a unique contribution to the world, right? It's the future. This is how I see our future industry. Bamboo, which takes carbon and gives out oxygen. Unlike the modern cement industry, which is so very, very extractive. In order to solve our human needs, we are like pillaging the earth, right? So that's it for now. This is me, and this is our coordinates. If you need more information. With that, I'd like to end the presentation. I hope I was on time.
Thank you so much, Architect Nirpal, for such a beautiful presentation that raises questions regarding character, identity, appropriate building technology in South Asia. And also, your buildings recognize and celebrate the vernacular beautifully. And most of all, I think changing public perception regarding work. So with that, we'd like to thank you, and we would like to invite Studio Interweave to please share their work.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thanks to you for inviting us. It's great stuff that you're doing, and for us, it's like being in a hallowed company. Nirpal from Abari. I've seen the other stuff, other people that you've interviewed. So we're honored, we're humbled, and happy to be here. So we just get straight into it. So a lot of our practice is, a lot of what Nirpal said, it resonates very deeply with what we're thinking, how we're doing stuff. There is nuanced variance in what we're doing, but like wonderful work from Abari, and nice to see. So we also we share like the similar like geographical kind of part of the Himalayas, and for us, like our practice, since it's based very much like in all local contexts. So we're going to spend some time to kind of like just to try and like familiarize you with our context and what it means for us. So one of the things is like because of like the you can say the geography and like a logistic reasons, maybe political turmoil in the Northeast, much of this like economic development which happened like post 1991 in India, post like liberalization, like the global development, it kind of like lost its acceleration when it like reached the hills, because it was difficult like logistically for like that to happen. So there is much of our indigenous culture and a lot of our like a traditional kind of a way of life and the natural environment is still intact. And because of that also, like, yeah, there is a less influence like culturally of modernism, let's say. Next. And which for us, like for us, it's like we see it like a blessing in disguise. And because like the modern like development that's happening for us, like we question that, like, and like what Nepal rightly saying, like where is it leading us, like, it's led us like to the edge of like a environmental crisis. There is like much more like social inequality in society. So maybe we like where this modern development hasn't come in like full throttle. So we have a chance to like kind of like to look at this like critically and see and carve a path for ourselves, like and the other thing about modern development for us personally, like we can see like the psychological insecurity that is like part of like this whole way of like living, like in the sense you get a education, you get a job. I mean, if you don't get a job that you want, like, you out on the street. So you're living in this constant kind of a sense of fear and insecurity, which is for us like which may not, which is there's a much better way to live, like, like even like, so a lot to learn about that from all like indigenous cultures where there is a social cohesion, which and there's something very deeply like an emotional kind of a security, like a psychological security, like, like that if you don't get a job, if you don't like your future is secure, you'll always have a home, you'll always have food to eat, you'll always have people like who care for you. So so that is something that we feel the modern kind of development, we are losing out on that, and it's something very precious that we should recognize. The other thing about like indigenous like cultures is its symbiotic relation with nature. So there is kind of an intimate like knowledge about nature, about like how you kind of like can find a balance with nature. Like when people go hunting or when they go uh, like searching for food in the forest, there is a kind of an etiquette, like when you do it, how much you do it. And like these families, like this is like a typical like a household in like Zonghu where the Lepchas live. So they live on like a small like half an acre plot, and they are completely like self-sufficient. Like what they buy from the local shop is they buy salt, they buy sugar, they buy oil, and nowadays they buy rice because it's so cheap, and they stop growing rice. But like they have their own cows and milk and butter, like chickens and eggs. They have like pigs and for meat, goats. They grow their own vegetables. The forest is nearby. They like they supplement their diet with mushrooms, like herbs from the garden. So it's a kind of a lifestyle that in a way that we are aspiring to, like what sustainable like people who are sustainably kind of like minded, they feel that this is the way to live, and we have that already. Like so, but then there is a flip side to this, because the people who are living here, it's the same thing what Nepal was trying to say. So they sometimes they look at their own lives with, oh, we're so backward, and they are kind of, they feel shy. Oh, don't come to my house. It's like so like like it's so like a beat up, and they want to like move towards like concrete buildings, and they want to have a car. They want to move to the city, like so. And when we talk to them about this, then for them it's kind of a like you guys like live in the city, like it it brings us face to face with a kind of a dilemma, like how do you deal with the situation. So and what we feel is we can have like the best of both, like how do we use technology and like a lot of stuff in the like the modern like development tools that are offered like to solve our problems, but at the same time we don't lose the good things in your own kind of a culture, like. So this is a picture which kind of like shows like Sikkim where we are. This is one of the hydropower dams, like the housing quarters. Like, so on your right is like Sikkim, the old Sikkim, and on your left is the new development which is pushing forward, and for us, like, we have a kind of a realization, like a sinking gut feeling that if we don't push back, we are going to get like swallowed up, and like there's nothing of a culture going to be left, like. So, and that's a kind of a very sobering thought, like when you are not sure about like what the new kind of culture is bringing in. You're not, I mean, not sure in the sense, that that's not like the answer. At the same time, like you have good things in your own culture, but you're not kind of like able to save that. So we feel that how do we bring about continuity and change, like how do we kind of like not lose the good things, at the same time like take advantage of like the opportunities offered by technology. And so this translates to us like in terms of incremental growth, like we don't have to like straight away build a 5-star hotel like in like in remote places, so you can start with like, I mean, in fact we don't need to be 5-star hotels at all. So we can start like in ways which recognize what our capability is, and then we attempt to do those things, like. So then you learn from doing that, and then you move on to the next thing, like a more complex thing. So there is a learning process involved in our development. Like, it's not just about like a product. It's not about just putting a hydropower project there and getting power out and like making sure that it's kind of like the finances are working out. It's like how can that kind of like be opportunity for us to like grow and evolve, like so at the bottom of that issue lies the issue of ownership. So who owns these hydropower projects? And a lot of them are like none of them are owned by Sikkim. We didn't even try, like. So why didn't we do one, learn how to do it, and maybe try and own the second one and do it ourselves? So like these kind of issues are also very much like part of our like conversations in our practice, and it kind of permeates like most of whatever we do. And yeah, so that's very much central to our way of practicing, that we see interconnectedness in things, like much the same way that Nepal was saying. And this is like a bit of a physical context. Like, we are blessed. We live in like a beautiful land. I mean, it's like special in many ways. Like, if you see like the biodiversity kind of like that we have, because of alternative range, we have almost like from close to sea level, like 800 like feet above sea level, Tista-Rangi Junction, all the way to Kanchenjunga, so almost to like the top of the world. So we have a lot of like variation in our climate and a lot of variation in our biodiversity. We also have, because of this, we also have challenging terrain for like to, I won't say challenging. I mean, for us, we take it as a given now. But like terrain is something very kind of special in Sikkim. Like, if you have to build a volleyball court, you cannot do a volleyball court anywhere in Sikkim without having to do fair amount of like cutting and filling, like excavation work. So we don't have any plains at all. And where we are located in the Himalayas, because we are the Yangtze Mountains, we also like geologically, it's like a fragile. And so therefore it's like has a lot of seismic activity. So that also kind of like it's part of our physical context. Next. Or human and social context, like there is kind of we live on like largest from New Delhi, like so we are completely dependent on development money which comes from Delhi. Nowadays, like of late, like tourism has like kicked in, and then there is a lot of people employed in tourism. But so basically trying to tell you that like we don't have a very strong socioeconomic kind of base, like if you look at it in terms of like modern statistics. And in from that perspective, our human capacity and is also kind of like lacking, especially like it affects us directly when it comes to like having skilled labor or like professional services. So and when it comes to technical capabilities, like we tend to throw our hands up and like, it's like people from the planes will come and challenging there is also something that we constantly like it confronts us in our practice is like like there's something called the Maslow hierarchy where we can the
Sorry, did we lose him?
I think we did.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue for him. So
Thank you.
yeah, so I'm just gonna take off from where he was talking about like the Maslow's hierarchy, So in that, like basically what it says is, like for people to sort of actualize or like sort of reflect on what they're doing and then sort of like work on like their own self-actualization. So a lot of other things needs to be fulfilled, like things like basic needs. So right now at the moment where we are is like our basic needs are just getting fulfilled. So we are climbing up that triangle, up that hierarchy, so that we sort of self actualize what we've done, what mistakes we've made, and like how much of like degradation sort of we have sort of like done. So in order to actually sort of realize the sort of like the results of our action. And in this particular slide, basically you can see like the quality of construction, the quality of built environment, and this also translates into like lack of like skilled labor and like lack of like human capacity in some ways. So that's that. And architecture as a profession in Sikkim, like it's relatively sort of new, and there's a lot of like lack of awareness design. So, oh, you're back. Okay, guys, you want to continue? Hello, you there?
first like building commission like done by an architect. Can you hear me?
Sort of, yeah, we are losing you in and out.
Yeah, I think yeah. So this is done by Robert Wise. He's an architect from Kathmandu, a Swiss guy. So he was commissioned by the king back in 1972. So as late as 1972 was the first. I mean, that was also under like royal patronage. So yeah. So just to tell you that architecture, like I was like in a way one of the first architects. I would, like I mean, at the present moment, like yeah, I would say like I'm the oldest architect who's practicing. So, and I came here in 1991. So it was a very like a fresh and like a new field. Nobody knew much about architecture. There was a complete lack of awareness about like design. And so yeah, so the architect scenario was like that. And yeah, just to give you a kind of an idea about like the traditional vernacular. So this is one of the buildings, like so it's stone. So there's like Ikra is a big part. Like you'll Upi will talk about it later in the presentation. So Ikra is a wattle and daub, which is a timber frame with a bamboo kind of mat reinforced. We can see in the bottom right hand corner, which is plastered over with traditionally with mud, nowadays with cement plaster. So that's this stone wall, and corrugated sheets kind of become a vernacular for us. And now with urban living, so what's happened is like RCC is for us it's become like the vernacular. It's everywhere, like. And one of the reasons Nepal was saying was also I would like to add to that one of the reasons why people choose RCC is that you can go high. Like over here, like in Gangtok, in these urban centers, like land cost is very high. Like so people buy a piece of land, they want to make the maximum like economic benefit of it. They want to build high. So and RCC allows you to do that. And there's also ironical that even like banks, they will recognize an RCC building as like collateral. They won't recognize a traditional building. So there is also like these deep-seated kind of biases, I'd say. Um, yeah. Just coming back to our practice now, we'll get into our work. Things are very much interrelated, like for us, and so I mean, for us, like we learned sometime back not to see things in isolation, and that's the problem actually that we kind of like get ourselves in. Like when we just look at, like okay, this is the design, and I want to make this like really like a nice building, and you kind of like forget about like the environment, forget about like the people who are living there, the economy. So those things have to kind of like get considered. I mean, otherwise you become like part of the problem, and then we don't want to be that. So the other thing is also we collaborate a lot, like, and we are very much kind of like concerned about the city, Gangtok especially, what's happening. We feel that nothing much is happening, so we kind of like it's kind of like seamless that things which concern us, like we gravitate in the direction, and so much so that actually we stood for the local municipal elections a couple of months back. Like it was a collaborative effort. We teamed up with other like-minded people, like also a lot of designers, and we felt that we could do something about like Gangtok desperately needs to be planned, and planned like well holistically. So, and we don't see that happening, and we don't see the possibility of that happening. So we felt that okay, this is a chance. Let's get it. Let's try it. The fact that we feel like miserably doesn't matter. The fact that also we felt that okay, like we have to do whatever we can do, like and yeah. So we'll get into the practice. So this is like a house that I built myself. This is in around, like, it started off in 1996. So I've been practicing for a couple of almost like 5-6 years, and you realize quickly enough, like coming into like a virgin kind of a place where architecture and design is not heard of, and you are coming from having studied architecture in like good schools, having been exposed like to architecture like in other parts of the world, like you've kind of like have the ideas that you have about architecture for a place like Sikkim at that time were like completely radical, and then the projects that you were getting were very conservative, and you can't kind of like express yourself, and you kind of like that like for a sustained amount of time, when you're not able to kind of express or manifest your architectural ideas, it can get very frustrating. So I built this house as also like it was also this time for me to kind of like a catharsis situation where I could kind of like try out many things that I've been thinking of. One of the things I always felt was an appropriate kind of a form in the hills is like inverted roof, because like in a traditional roof, like in a high rainfall area with a lot of trees and leaves and all that, so you normally tend to have a gutter around, like kind of like the gutter where the leaves get stuck, like the woodwork kind of gets rotten, it doesn't get cleaned up, it becomes a mess. If you don't have a gutter, the water comes all around your house, you're going to have a big drain, and it's not a dry environment around your house. So, but if you do this, like what happens is like the environment around your house is like dry, you don't need a gutter at the top. You have a much bigger gutter which the water can sweep away the leaves, and you get more light in. So it was something that I tried with a lot of my clients without any fail. So I thought, like, I mean, so for me, like, obviously I wanted to try this out. Like, so this and other things, like, for example, bamboo reinforcement. Like, I'd read that Laurie Baker had done it, and I saw like a handbook where he had done it, and I was thinking, like, oh my God, like, if this works, this is fantastic. So I talked to a lot of engineers, a lot of people. Nobody kind of like was excited about it. Nobody wanted to try it out, and I realized that engineers, they need to kind of like have very quantifiable data that they can do calculations on. So I was thinking, like, let's go by a hunch and let's see. And since it's my own house, I wanted to try it out. So we did this bamboo reinforced concrete. So the middle is kind of like a ferrocement shell, but then the beams and the columns are completely like bamboo reinforcement. So I tried that out. Then I waited for another 5 or 6 years to see whether it's going to hold up, and just like expose it to the elements. So it was fine. So the next step on top of that was try to build something very light, because I wasn't sure about like the structure. But at the same time, like building light, I mean, we'll go on up to that later. Like, why building light in Sikkim is something to think about because of the environment. So the inspiration for the lightweight structure was like these electric poles, like, which have these 4 like angles at the corners, and then they're kind of like stiffened by these like rebars, like randomly, and then suddenly it becomes very stiff. So that's one of the good things about steel is like, the welding junction makes it stiff. So with very little material, okay, I know it has an environmental footprint, but like you can really reduce the amount of material. And I wanted to show in this slide that the corrugated sheet walls and the plywood walls on the inside, the framework for that is very slender, So I mean, so that whole thing, the composite structure makes it stiff, and so this is also something that we could think about, like carrying forward. Um, so yeah, so the lightweight had to do with the geological structure. I think Upi is going to take it from here.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That's the reason why we try to build like what Kalazi was talking about, So we've got this very fragile sort of geology, and we've got high amount of rainfall. So sometimes like it can be very risky like this. And the general tendency over here to when we build is to flatten out the land, and for that you need to excavate with like this excavators, JCBs and stuff. And then you put up this huge retaining wall, which is obviously not only like very costly, but also makes it very vulnerable and heavy. Like it's just like a very high. It has a lot of impact on the land itself, So we are in this constant search of like this appropriate language, which sort of responds to the landscape, like the geology, and also at the same time, it's like much more economical. So this for us is like we felt that this was sort of response to that steep terrain. It is much more low. It has low impact. It is so this one is just lightweight structure on stilts. So we sort of avoid major excavation, although this foundation does require some sort of excavation. But then you help the water percolate, so it doesn't really stop the water from getting inside the ground. So this is like a homestay like in North Sikkim. So we felt that we could do a very lightweight structure over here. The thing with the material that we've used over here, it's timber, but then this timber, it comes all the way from Scandinavia, to be honest. So it has a huge carbon footprint, like because I mean, like of course, when it comes to sustainability, we have to sort of like think of all this. But at the same time, the reason why we chose to use this material is the quality of the, and not just quality, actually it was because of the cost of this timber. I mean, it's just like half the cost of the timber that you get over here, good timber that you get over here. And for us, like even for the client, it just made more sense. And also the quality of the timber that you get like in this, so the local timber, we don't we have like a lot of problem. It's not seasoned at all, like and also the local timber is generally sourced from like prime forest, so not to sort of like give an excuse for it, but then it is like that. We don't have sustainable forest over here. So this timber that you get, like it's FSC certified, and also it has benefits of like quality, So yeah, this is the materials sort of we've been using in a lot of our projects solely because of the cost. And so the earlier project was more on a steeper terrain. This one is more on a gentler sort of terrain. This was like on a paddy field, so we didn't want to disturb the landscape so much. So we were working with the landscape rather than sort of like working against it, and so sort of embrace them also into the architecture. So this is a residence, 2-bedroom residence for a client. So sort of like the interior. So if you see, like it sort of like gives a character because of that. Just like at the split level, it gives a character to the architecture. Like it's in a way, like the outside landscape sort of like becomes part of the interior experience, And it sort of seeks to, so the architecture that we are trying to create, it seeks to sort of blend in with the landscape, even though when it's obviously man-made. And sometimes like architecture tends to isolate themselves from the surrounding, become an island sort of like which is starkly in variance. But so there is this danger of becoming an alien. So we wanted to sort of like sort of fit in with the landscape. This is another project with similar terrain and sort of landscapes. Like Sikkim is like also known as Valley of Rice, so there's a lot of this paddy fields, and this sort of landscape is prevalent everywhere. So but then this time, like we thought we could take like a different this is a very different response to the initial one. So it's more like learning from a traditional way of building. This was a hospitality project, so we built this retaining walls, like retaining walls out of stone and cement, and then on top of that we put this very lightweight ikra structure. So this is the traditional form of construction, like over here. So it's got timber frame and it has the bamboo infill, which makes it very rigid, and it sort of performs very well during earthquake also. So it does. It is appropriate. We feel that it's appropriate material for this context, and it's also like sort of humble and honest, which is sort of rooted to its place. So this is the finished thing. So it's the language, it's sort of like again borrowing from a traditional language. So it's sort of like the effort was to sort of blend with the surrounding built environment and not to stand out and then sort of intimidate the surrounding built environment. So if you see, this is the traditional architecture that you see. So it's not very far from there. So it's just like yeah, adapted to the modern needs. So in the same project, like there were cost overruns, and then we thought that okay, timber wouldn't be so feasible for the roof, so we opted to go with bamboo. Like this is more of a cost saving sort of approach. And but then bamboo as a material is something that we've always wanted to work with. It's something that we see a lot of potential in, and it's largely it's abundant over here. So it's something that we can work with. But the acceptability of bamboo, not everyone is like willing to accept the bamboo, so easily. Bamboo. So this is another project. It's a homestay in Darjeeling. It's called Bijanbari. So we feel that bamboo, because of its tensile strength, because of because of its lightweight nature, so it's ideally suited for steep terrains. Of course, it's cost effective, and because of its tensile strength, it has the ability to take a lot of lateral force. So be it wind, be it like earthquake. And this project actually, like we were saying, like not many people like accept bamboo as a building material because they feel that it's prone to a lot of weathering, and it's not a very robust material. But over here, like we had a very good like client. His name is Navraj, and he's an environmental scientist at ECMOR. So he was very interested in bamboo. So he came to us, and then he sort of like gave us almost like a free hand. And but then initially it was planned as a house. So initially we thought that okay, yeah, I mean the client said, like, came to us and then said like, okay, this is going to be a house, this is where I'm going to be living in. So we kind of like planned it in a way that is like sort of like a house, but then this is in a very low altitude near the river. It's very warm and humid, so we wanted to make the whole experience a bit airy and a lot of ventilation coming in. But then soon, like we made this prototype. Like first, we made one of the units first, and then it sort of a lot of people were curious about the building. So a lot of people started to come in, and soon it became like a tourist attraction sort of thing. And so then like the client, he decided that okay, he'll turn this into a homestay. So right now uh, it's running as a homestay. So with bamboo, like there was a lot of learning. Like we had to sort of like learn because we hadn't done so much of bamboo work. So one of the main things about bamboo was like this lack of skilled labor. So with bamboo, it's difficult to sort of with like basic tool set, it is difficult to build. So the layout, just getting the layout, like getting the levels and even the terrain, so the 90-degree right angles and stuff, it's sort of difficult. So like the local labor over here, they are familiar with the material, but then not with the new technology and probably not the designs, the new designs. So for us, we also wanted to take this material and then sort of improve, like on the, at least in the design front, and like to sort of suit the modern needs. So there was this, we were also in this project, we were trying to build local capacity. We thought that, okay, we'll get like the local people over there and we'll like help them build their capacity and stuff like that. But then it was sort of a nightmare because the guys are like over here, the local laborers, they have this tendency to sort of drink on site, and like it became a bit of a nightmare. And so in order to complete this prototype, so three of us, like Kailash Zizu, myself, and one more guy called Karan from office, we had to park ourselves on site for 3 weeks, and we actually built it with our own hands. And it was a great learning experience, and that's something that I want to share. And of course there's a lot of challenges in bamboo, like I mean, bamboo, like the nature of the bamboo is itself is such, and it has its own like challenge in terms of, like, at least in terms of the joinery, in terms of like and bamboo is something that is very susceptible to termite attacks. So when you sort of like treatment and seasoning becomes very important. So that requires, I'm not going to get into the detail of that. But anyway, so, and also over here, we've used the Ikra walls as the envelope, because in bamboo, generally, it's difficult to achieve like a draft proof envelope, like because of the nature of the bamboo. So we felt that Ikra was an alternative. It was like an option that was very locally available. So we felt that we could use Ikra as the partition. And so in all of this stuff, we sort of realized that the role of designer, like it is very important when it comes to like to make bamboo more acceptable, and because bamboo generally is always associated with temporary shelter, or like it's associated with poverty. So like the role of designer sort of becomes very important. So how you sort of like design the building and then present it, or like express it. So the same is with Ikra. So same is with the Ikra, the technology itself, so it has always been considered as kacha. So even the banks don't recognize Ikra as a collateral, so it's kind of weird. And it's obviously like bamboo, it is also associated with poverty. So in this particular project, it's a residence. We wanted to explore how do we make it more acceptable, so this friend of mine, he was very sort of like keen on having this like a nice residence, and I pitched an idea to him, okay, why don't we make this out of Ikra? So he kind of liked the idea, and then we sort of assured him that okay, it's going to be like good. So the idea over here was like to inquire into the technology, the Ikra itself, like how it can be improved, like and learn from the shortcomings of the technology itself. So and then also the thing is like so this is the Ikra frame that is built on top of the stone walls, and like the thing is like I think like a lot of times like our design decisions are sort of driven by like this cost, there's a factor of cost always there, and so we have to think hard, like it has to be logical, it has to be sort of rational, and it has to be sort of like structured, almost like so the designs, when like if you look at the plan, it's almost utilitarian, and almost like it doesn't have the experiential quality in that conventional sense. But then of course the experiences are much more different, like and this whole idea, I feel like this whole idea of like this approach sort of like ties up with our overall approach of this incremental growth. We don't want to sort of jump into something very ahead of us, like we want to sort of like incrementally grow. So Yeah, so this also, we are hoping that, like, like by building a project like this, we are hoping the aspirations of people to build in RCC sort of change, so that there are other technologies which are much more like which are local and sustainable, and I think like much more suited to our context. And so house like this is an attempt like at architectural expression of like a contemporary lifestyle in this local context. So we also like which also advocates the use of material that are traditionally relevant. And yeah, this is an ongoing quest, like in the projects that we are involved in. So I'm just gonna run through the ongoing projects that we are sort of doing at the moment. So this is another house, like again, like this corrugated sheet and timber building, very light. This is another variation of a bamboo building that we're doing. So this is like an improvement on the earlier design, like the Bijanbari project. So we tried to sort of reduce the foundation required, because we realized that the foundations were getting expensive and then much more invasive. So we thought that we could sort of improve on the previous prototype rather than working into something else. And this was a project that we had done, like this is again in bamboo, but then it was sort of slightly different approach. It was a project in Nagaland. It's a museum. It was a museum for crafts and weaves of Nagaland. So the fact that bamboo is locally available and it's quite popular in Nagaland, we thought that you would try it out. It's more like last time Nepal, sorry, like earlier Nepal, that I was talking about this weave, So it's almost like we wanted to create this canopy, it's sort of this weave over the exhibition spaces. Sadly, the project didn't really take off. So this is what how it was proposed. This is another building that we are doing in rammed earth and timber. So I'm not going to talk more about the design. Just going to go through the projects we're doing. So this is a glass house, like for a herb garden. It's like in Gangtok only. It's Namgyal Institute of Tibetalology. So this is another one of the bigger projects that we're doing, that we are involved in. It's a music school. Actually, it's a whole big campus. This is just the auditorium block of the school. It's a music school for underprivileged children. It's in Kalimpong. So would love to share more, but then I don't think so we have time. This is a residence. Again, this is like in a urban environment, So therefore, like the choice of material is like more something that is like sort of relatable to the urban context. It's sort of responding, uh, I feel, I mean, it's to its immediate surrounding with the expression of its time. And we still like find or try to weave elements that sort of resonates with the locality, but also not falsify them, as ornaments or decorations. So we're quite like mindful of that. This is a business hotel in the city center, so it's sort of like under construction. So if you see, the building is quite a contrast with the surrounding, and I think it was sort of deliberate. Not I think it was deliberate, because the surrounding environment, if you see, it's no way inspiring or comforting, unlike our traditional counterparts. So we are deliberately creating an architecture that is in stark, at least with this building, at least in this building. So we are creating an architecture that is starkly in variance, with the surrounding, denouncing the default like vernacular that is happening in this entire Southeast Asia. So, but then, I mean, like we are trying to influence design in small pockets. So this is in an urban environment again. It's in the city center, but we are aware that we are not making a dent in the larger picture. So the larger picture being the city itself, which requires a lot more thought and a lot more planning. And so sometimes we can be like ostriches and just do like these things in isolation, but we cannot, like, I mean, I feel like we cannot be like that we cannot be like ostriches and disregard what's happening around. And as professionals in this field, we strongly feel the need to get involved and advocate for better planning to obviously improve like the quality of life within the urban environments that we reside in. Okay, maybe then Kalazizu can take over from here. Yeah.
So can I have another 2 minutes? I know we are overrun with time. We just need to wrap up 1.5 2 minutes. So this is Gang Talk, and like Upi was saying, like, we feel the need to get involved with Gang Talk. And when you look at context like this, it seems like, wow, beautiful, like a place and, all that. But the thing is, like, Gang Talk has grown very rapidly, and we used to consider ourselves like a small town, like till some time back. And suddenly now we realize that we are already a city, and we are a city without any planning. And in a terrain like Oz, where it's very challenging to build, and there's a certain kind of a development also which happens, like wherever there's a road, that's where the city grows. So yeah, next. So what's happening is we are creating like a really horrible kind of built environment for ourselves to live, and it's getting like worse by the day. So there's something like about a city, like the bigger a city gets, the more people it attracts, the more viable like other jobs become, the more people it attracts. So it just kind of like gets bigger and bigger, and we are constantly running after the problem instead of being on top of the problem, and especially when it comes to transportation. So we are in a bit of a mess at the moment. So if you see like the terrain of Gangtok, it's very steep, like, so for a road, like to on a like acceptable slope of say 1:6, 1:7, it takes a long time to get from one place to the other. You got to wind your way up, and a road kind of system, it also kind of like you excavate a lot on already kind of a geologically fragile land. You invite like more like landslides, so, and you interfere with the natural drainage of the land. So we were looking at like a ropeway. I mean, I've been talking about it for a long time because when I was an exchange student in Switzerland, I saw this kind of the ropeways and these funiculars, and there's a light bulb went off, like saying that, yeah, this is like perfect, like, and but something like this, it takes a long time for it to gain acceptance. And then now when the situation is really bad, there's no other way out. Like I think people have accepted like ropeway is a possible solution. So we were thinking like, the ropeway why is it so appropriate? Because like in steep terrains, a ropeway can go straight up, like, so whereas you might need to take a long winding road to like get like from a level below to something which is higher up. And a lot of terrains like that. But with a ropeway, you can just cut that distance straight away. So it's a much more efficient way of doing. We need to like find a structure about like how the ropeway could also, in a way, whether we can find another layer of mobility on top of the city, which operates independent of like cars and like traffic, because cars and traffic straight away, like the environment like degrades. So if you have like, for example, like pedestrian or like cycling routes connecting horizontally, like between ropeways, or like you use like escalators and lifts like to have last minute connectivity, but then you have essentially like horizontal kind of like footpaths, cycling paths, which also becomes arteries where your city tends to like grow into. Because like in a terrain like ours, the city grows wherever there is accessibility, because that's where, otherwise if you don't have access, then it's impossible to build, because you've got to carry everything by head load and all that stuff. So so there is a way that you can think about like the mobility as a way to kind of like plan the city and guide the city to its like growth, So that's one. The other thing is like from or inside out growth, like, from a bigger perspective, something like this, like we're trying to solve our own problem, something which is a little bit technologically challenging, is like the perfect kind of a scenario for us to kind of like embrace and to grow into that space, like, so we kind of like, we know that something like this is coming up. We start like training ourselves like in like the technical aspects or about like other things. And also from a planning point of view, like we take ownership, like, and we kind of like plan it our way. And also like integrated into the city, you also see where jobs can come up. And so look at this as an opportunity to build our human capacity. And most importantly, whether we can like own it, like Upi, I think we missed a slide in the middle.
Sorry.
Pie chart. Anyway, yeah. So the thing is like whether we could own it ourselves, it might seem like an audacious thing, but then if you will kind of like break up, like what are the components of this project, you need like land, you need like power, you need like, ropeway stations, and, you need like these kind of like towers. So a lot of these things we can do ourselves, like we have the local contractors who could do that. We are sitting on like hydropower, we have the land resource. So in the end, like maybe what we need actual money for, cash for, is just like the ropeway, like electromagnetic kind of infrastructure. So why can't we, instead of like, normally what happens is there's something called like a PPP mode, public-private partnership. So you go and like tender it out to a big company, they come and they do it, and then they move away, like from there. So there is no engagement with the local people or recognizing the opportunity for growth, development, evolution of a people like through a project like this. So we feel that, we need to kind of like take ownership of this and learn and grow in the process and get more confidence, like to build our own like assets, to own our own assets in the future. So, but like even like otherwise, like a model like this, say we need money for the ropeway company, then instead of like depending on the aid money from Delhi, we can go to like a lot of international NGOs who might get excited by a model like this and say that, can you give us like a soft loan on this? Like they might want to, or come on board as a partner in this. Like this whole thing is about partnerships. So there's also like a big social kind of we see this as opportunities. Like it's not about just making a project and making it well and going. It's like about how you make it. Like, how does it kind of like tie in with the local economy? How can you like take the learning opportunities and help the local people get livelihoods also? So yeah. So basically that. Next. So anyway, sorry, like took a long time, but then this is the end. So we again, like we reiterate our kind of like our position where we are. So we feel that there is a kind of an inside out and an outside in kind of like almost like a frontier happening in the places where we practice, And for us, like we know which side we are on, and that's where we're going to be. So that's it from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, architects Kailash and Upendra, for sharing your wonderful work with us and your fascinating presentation that addresses the challenges of practice in a difficult terrain, intervening in an environmentally pristine region, and also beyond singular projects, looking at broad ideas for developing sustainably in an environmentally rich region. I think both practices today raised questions of appropriateness, contextuality, resilience, and we really thank you for sharing your inspiring work with us. With this, we open our session for conversation. We invite the audience to please share your questions for our presenters. I'm also very happy to introduce our two moderators for today's conversation, two fifth-year students of architecture, Monisha Raju from SPA Delhi and Nechal Magan from CEPT, Ahmedabad. Nechal recently interned with Studio Interweave. Both Monisha and Nechal have been interns at Design United. So we welcome both Monisha and Nechal to Design Conversation. Thank you. With this, we open the session.
Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. The presentations were very lovely, and we had a wonderful time looking at the kind of projects you do, and it was very intriguing to understand the challenges that you face while building in such terrains. First of all, I'm Monisha Raju. I'm an architecture student from SPA Delhi. And Nechal, would you like to introduce yourself before we?
I'm Nechal. I'm from CEPT University. I've interned with Studio Interweave, and it's been such a pleasure working with them. And it was such a pleasure hearing and listening to both of the firms about their work. And it was very inspiring.
Sure. We would like to ask Studio Interweave about, so basically the construction industry faces numerous challenges when it comes to reusing materials and resources to save embodied energy. So could you tell us if you employ circular economy in your projects? and specifically about the formwork of the building? And if so, how does it contribute to the projects that respond to the context and use local materials for construction?
OP.
When it comes to construction, like we don't like really like look into this circular economy that you're talking about, but then we are conscious of like the cost. I mean, and also like the reusability of the materials. So at least in the projects, not in the urban sort of projects, but in the other projects that we do tend to sort of like use the stuff that we use. I mean, we are very like what do you say? Conscious of the materials that we use, and we are also conscious of like the waste that we generate on site. So that's the thing with the at least with the materials that we use.
Okay.
Do you want to add to that, Kazu? I don't
No,
know
not
if I really.
really. After seeing Nepal's that bamboo, with the plantation and all, I feel like that we are nowhere near there, but
Yeah.
we do like try. Imported timber is one of the exceptions, but otherwise we completely use the local materials. And also, like, we don't like that word boutique, like, or exclusive. Like, we want to be the other of boutique, so we don't, so the materials we use or the way we do it, we want it to feel accessible to everybody. So
Right. Okay.
I don't know whether we.
No, I think we've gotten the answer that we were looking for. But what about the formwork in the buildings? Like, how do you reuse them if you do?
Are you talking about shuttering?
Yeah, I'm talking about the shuttering.
Like a lot of the, like in the house that I built, like, so there the bamboo was used as shuttering. So after that, yeah, I mean, bamboo, the thing is like it's not much use, but you can use it probably as
Okay.
plywood, or like you can use it, you can find some other way for it. Otherwise, shuttering is normally plywood.
Mm-hmm.
We have attempted that. We have it. I mean, in the sense like we tend to. I mean, like we have sort of like advise clients to use the same shuttering for the ceiling. Like, let's say,
Okay.
like if there is any material left, generally, I mean, generally they use very the shuttering is not very good over here, especially in the rural areas. So the shuttering, like Kalaziz was saying, it's mostly plywood.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to sort of advise them to use it on ceiling, but then since it has this waterproof coating on top of it, it doesn't, like, the paint doesn't really stick on it, so it is a bit of a challenge to convince the client to sort of use that. But then, yeah, definitely, something that we should consider in the future.
But just like traditionally, a lot of people use corrugated sheets for the slabs. For the reinforcement, I mean, for the shuttering for the slabs, so which they reuse again, we don't do it much, but traditionally, I mean, like, that's what it's a general practice.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that.
I understand like the practicalities that come with having a sustainable approach and in terms of cost. So I guess what I'd like to know about Studio Abari is that you're a very strong advocate of like bamboo and earth materials, and justifiably so. But how do you manage to bring confidence amongst your urban clientele in the use of such materials? I think you're on mute, Mr. Nepal.
Yeah, sorry. It's, as I said in the presentation, our biggest challenge is perception, because we are running against the current. The whole media, everything is pro-concrete, and why would anyone listen to us, right? But yeah, there is a slight shift, in globally, and people are getting more ecological and conscious. So there is that interest naturally, like to build with different material. And for us, what happened was that earthquake was, it showed that, you can build in a very earthquake prone area and still be safe, right? When someone wants to build, the first factor is safety. And that's kind of, over the years with our work, we've kind of proven that. And second is like, yeah, seeing is believing, like, because building a house is a very personal enterprise and people don't want to take the risk, right? It's not like just buying a piece of furniture. So yeah, there's a lot of questioning and a lot of, but yeah, we've been around for a while now. So we've done a few projects, we built that rapport. So yeah, people are convinced now, it's yeah, they come, they see, they're like, okay, this is not what I thought, and so they ask a lot of questions and they see and they feel. And yeah, yeah, we are doing a couple of projects even in the city, like right in Kathmandu, which you've seen is a big concrete jungle. So it takes time, I guess, to answer shortly.
All right. I have a question for both the studios, right? And we know that your studios right now are in higher altitudes, in the mountains, and you have your challenges when it comes to the context. But could you tell us a bit on how can we make sustainable practices relevant while building in an urban context? Any of you all can, yeah.
Can I take it? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I mean, the biggest polluters are the urban people, right? It's not in rural contexts, as we saw from Sikkim, Nepal, like, they don't need any lessons in sustainability. But it's in the city that's where it's relevant. And, like, even if you look at bricks, like traditional bricks, you cannot go over 2 story. You need a frame structure. I mean, according to the code, right? But I've seen like 3-4 stories, brick buildings, masonry buildings built there. But according to today's code, even like brick buildings, you cannot go higher than 2 stories. So you have to do frame structure. And if you do, and especially if you go with bamboo, it's a frame structure, it's a like really ductile material. It works, as I said, it's as good as steel or even better. So, and that's a very beautiful material to put it in the urban context. And, like from seeing from beautiful works from studio interview, like, it is relevant in urban contexts. And it's not only relevant, but it's more necessary in urban contexts. Right. Yeah, so, and also it's not just us, but it's also the policy, which needs to be more proactive and be like, yeah, because we are, as I said, all of us are fighting against the current. It's like, even though we are trying to use something that's been there for hundreds of years, we cannot build it because they think it is not strong. While on the other hand, like steel, concrete, it's more of an experiment than our bamboo building. It's been there only for like, I don't know, 50, 60 years. And in our mountain context, it is totally unsustainable. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Nrupal.
Yeah, guys, you want to go first?
Yeah, I just have some small thing to add.
Yeah.
That you're asking, like, how can you make sustainable practice relevant while building in an urban context? So for me is like, you cannot like live in an island and not think about the city, So you would have to think about the bigger city, what your ideas about it are, what you critique it, what things could be better. I mean, I know it looks like you're trying to move a mountain, but then, yeah, I mean, like, if you don't like it, then it has to start somewhere. And then you align whatever you do according to what your bigger idea or picture, aspiration about the city is or should be, you know, like, so I feel that you should be thinking about the city. The other thing is also to think about people. Like a lot of the times architects, we think about like objects, and the people are also there, but then they're not like up front and center. But then you can try and like bring them in the center, or like really in the middle of yeah, your, your view.
Right. Okay. We have a question from the
I just wanna,
audience.
sorry, I just want to answer that question as well, like regarding the urban environment, you know. So the urban environment is like this phenomena is like happening all over the world. I mean, it's not a, uh, it's not happening in isolation in this region. It's happening all over the world. So I mean, my take on it would be probably like, you know, rather than, I mean, fighting it, because it's a human sort of like a tendency to do that, because like people do find like a lot of what do you say in I mean, a lot of like similarities, a lot of like joy in or like working, being together, because it's been a phenomena that's been happening all over the, I mean, since like time and ages, you know. So I think like we need to sort of sort of embrace this the phenomena of urbanization, but at the same time, like obviously, like in the context of sustainability, what I would also sort of add to this is, you know, like because of the real estate, like because of the value of all real estate in urban context. So like Nepal that was talking about, like having this I mean, like this, the need to go up like vertically, you know. So I mean, and that sort of the modern materials which are not very sustainable, they sort of allow you to do that, right? But then like sustainability, like a lot of times I feel it's also associated with like three different things, like environment, society, and economics. So like it's always about that. But then a lot of times we sort of like forget to talk about like the experience that you can create, like the beauty, or like, you know, the aesthetics of things, which sort of like also can be, I think, like in my personal opinion, it can be sustainable. Because I say this, I went to, I when I was doing my masters, I went to this building like designed by Richard Rogers, and we were supposed to critique that building, you know, and in terms of like how sustainable it is, and how sustainable, like how much of energy it's consuming and stuff. So we went there, we sort of like critiquing the whole, like, you know, oh, this material has come from here, like there's so much of energy being consumed and stuff like that. But then like the building itself was so beautiful, it was so experiential, it made me like want to go back again and again, you know. So for me, like when you make a building of that quality and of that of you know, of that quality, so it makes you want to go back, and that itself, I think, like can be sustainable. You want to protect that building in the long run, you want to sort of like but then having said that, obviously, like yeah, there are like, it's a difficult fine line to tread, you know. You sort of have to balance your way through, you know. Yeah.
Right. So we have a question from the audience. And since both practices use bamboo as a part of their construction, how does the electrical and plumbing work out in those constructions?
Nirmal, right?
I don't know. I mean, you're putting me on spot. I guess like any other building, you know, it's just like you have to. I didn't see any issue why we can't do electric and plumbing. Plumbing part, you know, like I try to have all my plumbing exposed, so I don't, like, if there's any problem, I can fix it. And usually if the really wet area, I try to use that. I do small like concrete work there, you know. Or if like yeah, either concrete work or lime render. But yeah, the electric is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So the other thing for us, like we use bamboo on a lot of, or we found it very convenient to use it on steep slopes. So we have a stilted kind of structure, which is lightweight kind of floor. So we try to, but a little bit of the building we rested on the ground, which is the toilet part, if or there any wet areas, there's a kitchen or something like that. So that way it's a little bit easier to handle the drainage and plumbing part. Otherwise, like electrical and all that, I don't think it's a big issue. I mean, if you're not, yeah, so we don't have much problem with that.
Okay, there's a couple of audience questions. I think we have time for just one more. Since both practices talk about vernacular architecture, other than the physical entity of the material, as a practice, do you think about a vernacular way of living when you build in urban and village context? In means of growing food, firewood, basic self way of sustaining mountain life.
If totally, I mean, it's like, you have to live what you preach, right? So we try to be, I like one of the biggest, like when I was building for other clients, and if I was not living in a earthen house or bamboo house, my credibility was going like not so high, right? But then I said, okay, if I want to preach other people to live in a bamboo house, I need to live in one. Then I built the house, and then it was like, okay, then people were convinced. So yeah, we try to do that. We have an urban garden. I also live in village and in the urban area. So trying to, it's very important to show like what you preach, right? It's not just like, okay, earth is good, bamboo is good, but you live in a concrete house and you live very unsustainable life. Yeah. So I think it is very important.
What was the question initial? Was it like about the practice or your own life?
Both. So either you could comment on.
Because as practicing architects, a lot of our clients they live their own life. I mean, few of them, if you're lucky, like you'll get somebody who's very much aligned to your way of thinking, but a lot of the times they are not. And but nowadays, actually, it's true. Like more and more people who feel that way are coming towards us. So I think it's also a growing kind of a practice is growing in that direction. So that's one thing. Otherwise, we ourselves, like, yeah, both of us. I mean, we live in the city. I mean, when pre-corona, like I used to commute every day to town, so I was trying to buy an electric car, but then like at the moment I have like a gasoline car. So there are contradictions in our life for sure, like so. But you try to minimize, or you try to like move in the direction. For us, it's more like for me, it's like a path that you are on, and every step that you take, if you're going in that direction, then that's fine.
I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insights about your practice and your life and your approach and perspectives. It was lovely to hear you all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank United for having us. Like, I didn't get to do that earlier. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share our work. And also, Nirpal, thank you so much for your presentation. It was so lovely.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It was really nice. You're not just like creating beautiful, like this built environment, but then also like helping us sort of like think consciously of what we do, so which is amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, DU, for bringing us together. And like, yeah, it was so great to see your work, Interweave's work. I'm so excited. Actually, I'm planning my trip to Sikkim to visit you guys. And so yeah, it's a nice way to collaborate. I'll get your contacts through them. Like, let's see. Yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you. And thank you, DU, for this amazing work.
Thank you so much, architects Kailash Pradhan and Upendra and artist designer Dripal, for sharing your wonderful presentation and for the conversation today and the possibilities of collaborations and interest between firms. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to thank our moderators, Nechal and Monisha, for engaging the designers in such a wonderful conversation. Kairav and Nechal from the Design United team for inviting our distinguished speakers today and enabling this conversation. Thanks to the audience for participating. Have a great weekend. See you next Sunday for our very first student share session with students and mentors from across South Asia. Iram from the Design United team will share the upcoming series of events. Thanks and have a great weekend.
Bye.
First of all, I'd like to thank Architect Kailash, Architect Upendra, and Designer Ripal for your wonderful presentation today. And thanks to our moderators, Nachal and Monisha, for your interesting and also very thought-provoking conversation with them. Also, we'd like to extend our gratitude to Clayworks for supporting this webinar and all of our webinars. So far, Design United has completed 44 installments of Design Conversation, and this was our 45th conversation. And we have many more exciting speakers lined up with designers across the spectrum joining us to share their thoughts. We are coming up with a new series for young designers across South Asia to open up a regional dialogue on interesting thesis journeys with distinguished panelists called Student Share. Also, we are currently gearing up for our Design United's first anniversary with our first DU festival, Design Forward, this July. So join us for interesting conversations and also open houses across South Asia to witness works of various designers. Look out for more updates on our social media page and also do follow our speakers for today. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Do also fill in the feedback form that will pop up on your browser about today's webinar. Join us, stay inspired, and follow us for more upcoming updates. Until next time, thank you, stay safe. Also, I'd request our speakers and moderators to kindly stay. We would like to listen to your feedback.
We'll give our speakers a moment to collect their thoughts, and then you can start whenever. We request you to turn on your mic and camera while you're speaking. Thank you.
Yes, we'll do that.
Nepal, sir, would you like to start?
We would like to listen to your feedback on anything you would want to say.
Feedback on today's presentation?
Yeah, on anything, like if you want us to include something for DU or anything, would your insights on the whole conversation and DU as well.